Everybody know that we will be starting in 2 minutes. We will have a candidate that will be joining us a little bit later. She's had some personal things come up, but she will be on her way. But I just wanted to let you know that we will start in 2 minutes. Thank you.
She just got here. It's okay. First grade? None yet. My honeymoon isn't that long. Don't get excited. We're actually doing our song.
Be right there with me.
Would be surprised how little I actually have.
No, you're good.
Sorry about that.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to Black Lives Matter, Rhode Island Political Action Committee's Senate District 1 debate. I am happy to be joined by all of the candidates who will be on the ballot this upcoming September. And really appreciative of all of you who have come out today. I want to acknowledge the two city council women and man who represent this district for coming and all the great work that the both of you do. And most importantly, people here today for wanting to hear about these candidates' vision for Rhode Island and how they plan to serve this incredible district. And so with that being said, I want to start this debate. I want to go over a couple of rules before we start. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to be able to go through their intros before we go through a question. And when there's 30 seconds left in these responses, I will get on the mic and say 30 seconds. So please, reframe your comments to around 2 minutes so we can get to as many questions as possible today. All right, so what we'll do is we'll start all the way down to my left and introduce Jake. Go ahead, Jake.
Good evening. Thank you everyone for being here, and thanks to BLM PAC for hosting what I think is the first and hopefully the first of a few forums about this important race. Obviously, we're all here tonight, and this is a race because the passing of late Senator Mary Ellen Goodwin, who served for more than 3 decades in the Rhode Island State Senate. I decided to run after her passing because I had worked quite literally hand in hand with her at some times up in the State Senate, where I'm the Chief of Staff, on important issues not only for her community but for the state of Rhode Island. During that time, I also was able to purchase my first home right behind Newport Creamery after renting a number of years on Douglas Avenue. I went to Providence College, graduated Providence College in 2009, and I've come to call this area home. So after her passing, I thought it would be appropriate at this juncture in my life to decide to serve this important district, this important area, and continue important progress, namely on gun violence prevention, our housing crisis, and trying to figure out what to do with our Providence public schools so we don't leave a whole generation of students behind. So that's why I'm running. Thanks, Harrison.
Thank you.
Thank you, BLM PAC, for having this amazing, it's not saying, oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Harrison, and BLM PAC for having this very important debate tonight. It is detrimental to the community to see who is available to represent them when November comes and then January. My name is Nayoka Powell. I was born in Jamaica, moved to the United States when I was 9 years old, and lived in Connecticut with my parents. I moved to Rhode Island for college and never left. I went to Rick, and it kind of sucked me in. So here I am, 18 years later, still living in Providence. I never left the district. And it's become my home, and we started a family here, and it's been an amazing adventure. I've worked in healthcare all my life. I've worked at Roger Williams Medical Center. I've worked at Butler Hospital on the alcohol drug addictions unit. I've worked geriatrics, and now I work in manufacturing as an occupational health nurse. I've helped out throughout the years in the city with different initiatives, from the Binder Board with National Grid, all the way to being a founding member of Millennial RI and helping out the Haitian community by teaching English as a second language. This is my home. Rhode Island is my home. Providence is my city. I feel that this is where we all need to make a mark for our next generation. It has been an
30
amazing
seconds.
adventure, and I hope to bring it back to the glamour that it once was, where children can be safe in their homes, on the streets, in schools, and be able to provide appropriate health care that is essential to our elderly and our families.
Thank you. Marvin?
Hi. Okay. My name is Mario Mancibo. Thank you guys for having me tonight here as well. I come originally from Cuba, as an immigrant that has to escape from Cuba, from the communist country. I really appreciate that you guys open your heart and your door to get me here. So I feel welcome from the beginning, and I go right away from the start. I went to Rhode College, Providence College, and I finished my bachelor here again, or renew my bachelor here in the United States. And I went to Providence College, and I was in Providence College, so I wanted something a little more exciting, so I moved to Rhode College. So I have Master in Administration, I have a Master in Education, plus I am certified in different subjects. So I teach in Providence School Department for about 18.5 years. I went to Central, Hope High School, Chamber of Commerce, George Albert High School, Perry Middle School. So you can say I've been all over the place in the city. And I learned from the get-go, from the bottom, how people struggling, how families struggling, how students compete for clothing, for food, and how the family of the city suffer the lack of money, the lack of opportunity. So as a teacher, you have to be a mentor, you have to be a parent, you have to be
30 seconds.
basically everything. And then I decided to work in the community from the beginning. So I've been working with the community. I'm sorry, I want to be slow because I have an accent, but it's a time issue. So, and then I've been working in the community for about 25 years. I've been in this country, giving food, giving clothing, giving housing. I'm working for the homeless. I work with a minority. I working with African Americans. I work with Latinos. I work with white people that also struggle in the community. Try to do the best and try to find housing, education, better education, clothing, food. I opened the community pantry. So really is tough, and I want to summarize my life. I think I don't have enough time to tell you who I am, so I will hope can talk to you easily and slowly, just so you can understand what I mean and who I am.
Thank you so much. Representative?
Good evening to all. Thank you to our host of BLM Rhode Island PAC, Smithfield Library, and Providence Community Library. And thank you again to all community members that are here present. My name is Representative Nathan Beer. I'm currently representative of District 3, which this library resides in. I'm here today as a refugee, as a high school principal in Providence, and also as a state representative. But more than anything, I'm here as a proud resident of Smith Hill. My American story is Smith Hill story. When I first fled Liberia as a 19 years old young man, this neighborhood welcomed me with open arms. My first job was on Smith Hill at Better Bake Shop. I woke up every morning at 2 a.m. in the morning to walk from Duke Street to Better Bake to make sure that the doors, everything was prepared. At 7 o'clock in the morning, when the bakery was open, for people to have when the bakery was open for people to walk in. It was the first time I met Mary Ellen, 32 years ago. When she walked in Better Bake one morning, she said like, "Hey, young man, how you doing?" And we created that relationship 32 years ago, Mary Ellen and I. So that was also when I went, I also left.
30 seconds.
When I leave for Better Bake, I also had to go to Earthen Vessel, where I met John and Micah Earthen Vessel. So I am a proud Smith Hill resident. So again, throughout this time, this is what I'm running to be a state rep, to go to from state rep to a state senator. It's diversity in our state government. We don't have diversity in our state government. This is one
10
of my goals
seconds.
that I'm running for a state senator. And as your next state senator, I'll make sure diversity is in with our state government and minimum education and gun knowledge and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Chuck, all right. Hi, my name is Michelle Rivera, and I am not a polished politician. I am a regular, hard-working Rhode Islander, just like each and every one of you. And I'm running because I'm tired of seeing my neighbors struggling to get by. I too struggle to get by. I too struggle to pay my bills. And I'm tired of electing the same officials who do not do what they can for us, who forget about us. And that is why I'm running. I grew up in poverty. I faced homelessness as a teen after losing my father. Then I joined the military at age 17. I have one tour of duty in Afghanistan. I came back to Rhode Island, started off at CCRI, then I went to Rhode Island College, and I ended up getting my master's in social work. Grateful that the GI Bill helped pay for it. I've worked in residentials, I've worked in schools as a social worker. I've worked at the Providence VA, helping my fellow veterans. I currently am a passionate policy advocate, advocating for those who have been forgotten, for the voiceless, for those who are not being heard. And I'm a product of public housing, I'm a product of public schools. I lived over half my life in Chack Brown, and that's where I met the late Senator Goodwin, who was a huge inspiration to me. Thank you. My life has been a life of public service. From the military, so I'm a social worker, I work in a nonprofit, and I've known I wanted to help my community more than I already do, and I just hope that the community will see who I am and see why I'm the right candidate for this position. Thank you so much for our hosts and all of you guys for being here. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. Thank you all the candidates who provided, interesting backgrounds about themselves and why they're motivated to run here today. And with that, I want to go into some of our debate questions that we have here today. These debate questions came from not only community members, but elected officials throughout the state who have worked in policy and who have deemed that these questions are important to not only this district, but also the state in general. And so the first question that we'll do, and we'll start to my direct left, since we started with Jake before, is around Medicaid budget, around Medicaid. And so over the last few years, Rhode Island has continued to see Medicaid cut from the state budget. 2016 alone, the Rhode Island General Assembly cut more than $70 million from the program. This has led to the closure of state hospitals, nursing homes, and other primary care providers. At the same time, co-pays for Medicaid recipients continue to increase. So my question to the immediate left here for you, Michelle, and the rest of the candidates are, will you fight against any budget cuts to Medicaid and advocate for its expansion in Rhode Island?
I will absolutely fight against Medicaid cuts. I think we should be investing more in Medicaid, and I think we should increase the Medicaid reimbursement rate. That way, we're able to retain staff at our hospitals and we stop hospital shutdowns, because patients deserve quality care, and they are not getting it right now because we have a lack of staff. And the state of our hospitals, they need more funding. They need more funding. People deserve adequate care, and they're not getting it with the current funding that they have. So we need to increase Medicaid funding. And we need to alleviate the burden on the members of the community that these co-pays have of them. People should not be afraid to get sick or go into bankruptcy just because they got pregnant and had a baby. You know, that's unacceptable. We need to do better.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Representative.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I do agree with the question and what Michelle just alluded to. Those are some of the things currently as a state rep I have been fighting for. And if you check in or if you actually look, those are things that we've voted on as a state rep. I've voted on issues to make sure we're to continue increasing funding from Medicaid in the state. And also we're just last section when we did also there was a bill sponsored by Representative Scott Slater, who also been, we kind of compare like the ratio of a patient toward the CNA workers, those people that take care of our elderly within nursing homes. So because like those are things that I personally take pride of, because we have, prior to that, you have maybe about over like close to about 10 senior that's in our nursing home to maybe about 1 CNA. And if another CNA called out sick, so that other CNA have to take 2 or 3, like about double, like 20 patients to 1 CNA. So those are things that I fought for. Make sure we pass this bill in the State House. Make sure that the ratios are comparable with everything else, and keep funding Medicaid for our seniors in the city and everyone else. And also we're medication with pharmaceutical company, and also we deal with pharmaceutical company also that in regards to our insulin, we make sure that we reduce the price of insulin also last year, and those are bills that I co-sponsored also within the state.
Thank you so much. Mario?
I am 100% in favor of support Medicare. I'm against any cut for Medicare. All right, and I do believe that we need to support Medicare because we need money to support our seniors. So basically, if they go to the dentist, most of the time they don't cover whatever they need in their mouths. And we know as a new age, you need teeth, you need more different stuff in your mouth, and that is not getting taken care. A lot of people cannot afford it, and then they come in with depression, they come in with different issues because they cannot afford it to pay the cost. So at the same time, students, also immigrants, and people that need that support to be healthy and to contribute to the society. So I definitely will support Medicaid increase, no decrease, because we have a lot of money in the states. Only we have to allocate the money in the people that need that money here in the city where the poor people are.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Mario. Did you want to add?
It's okay.
No, go ahead.
I think that where Medicaid is currently is the bottom of where we need to bring Medicaid. I believe that as a state, we've taxed our constituents to oblivion, whether it is with our property taxes, whether it is with our insurance, just insurance itself. Insurance is high, you have a high premium, and you're purchasing this through your paychecks. The insurance companies are taking advantage. When you apply for insurance, you are saying you're giving your money to a company that will support you if you get ill, not that you're planning to get ill. They should also be looking into wellness care. If you're allowing a deduction with wellness care, you will decrease your bottom line with the cost of illness care. We need to be preventative and more proactive with our health care. And in doing so, I don't see where we can cut anymore, because people are bleeding money left and right, and it's not fair to the community, especially the underprivileged. And this is the bottom line of where I would even go with what they're trying to do right now, because we need to hold the insurance companies accountable for what they're doing to the people, not just the state legislators in, bringing up policies that will actually support the consumers. In healthcare, we've seen how COVID devastated all of the hospitals and all of the nursing homes. So the last thing we want to do is add another burden onto families who have to bring their loved ones back home. And I understand that burden, because this country is not equipped to deal with in-home living or assisted living at the home. So I wouldn't touch where it is right now. I would focus on the insurance companies, because they have a liability to each and every single one of us to make sure that we are healthy and to make sure that we are covered if we get sick, because nobody plans to get sick.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Certainly no to any Medicaid cuts. Since I joined the Senate in 2017 in a senior staff capacity, I've annually advised and helped leadership push back on any Medicaid cuts. You've actually seen funding for our hospitals go up, as most recently as this past annual budget. We also, and this is a disappointing thing, we wanted to ensure that a lot of our hospitals, just like housing, saw a large swath of those federal funds that came in during COVID, go to workforce. Because one of the things that has put our workforce in crisis is our Medicaid reimbursement rates. By way of example, a Medicaid reimbursement for a birth is around $4,000 to $5,000 here in Rhode Island. Just across the border, that same procedure, that same delivery is eligible for $10,000 in Medicaid reimbursements. So what that does is it leads many doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals to go and work in Massachusetts, and that's why, because they can afford the higher pay and that sort of thing. So that's why we see our workforce in crisis. The other issue that I believe needs to be addressed in Medicaid, and we've seen large steps forward on this, is the types of services that are eligible for Medicaid should be on par with private insurance. During this past annual session, we removed a prohibition in terms of making reproductive health care services Medicaid eligible. And I think those are important steps forward for a large percentage of Rhode Islanders
30
that
seconds.
rely on Medicaid. Around 30 to 40% of our population, I believe, is Medicaid eligible, if I'm correct. And just one last thing, we talked about the Safe Standards Act in our nursing homes, which certainly helps those that are trying to work their way up the socioeconomic ladder, our CNAs, that sort of thing. Representative Villa talked about it. Senator Goodwin was the prime sponsor of that act. The Senate passed that in February of that year, and every single day, I was on the phone with my best friend, Representative Slater, to make sure that bill got passed, because that makes sure that each patient in nursing homes gets at least 4 hours of care a day.
10 seconds.
And things like that need to be on our books. We've heard from industry, they don't like it, it's exacerbating the workforce crisis. The most important thing that we can do is take care of our most vulnerable residents. And those are individuals on Medicaid and individuals living in our nursing homes.
Thank you so much. This next question, I'll start with Nyoka, and then I'll call upon the next one just to alternate the starts. And this one has to do with repealing tax cuts to the wealthy. In 2006, Rhode Island cut taxes for the rich, which was the second largest series of tax cuts in U.S. history. As a result, millionaires have been paying the same income tax as middle-class families for over a decade. Since then, we have lost over $1 billion of tax revenue, leading to the budget cuts of social programs that benefit this community and other low-income communities in this state. Do you support the repeal of these tax cuts for the wealthiest individuals in our community, and how would you combat it if you disagree?
I disagree with it. I am not wealthy by any means. I do live paycheck to paycheck, like most of us do. The reason I'm saying that is because Rhode Island has quite the pattern of having a lot of corporations come in, take really nice budgets, really nice cuts, really nice chunks out of our finances for our city, and then run away when that time is up. We need to invest in companies that actually want to invest in Rhode Island, that actually wants to invest in Providence. I'm not saying that you don't work for a living, I work for a living, they work for a living. Some way, somehow, they made the money that they made. Unfortunately, he didn't. And I don't see reprimanding other people for their hard-earned dollars just for the sake of saying you're paying more taxes than I am or you're paying less taxes than I am. We all will get there eventually if we fix the system that's currently here, which is not investing in companies that are here to drain us. That's where I am.
Thank you so much. Would you like to go, Michelle?
I support repealing the tax cuts for the rich. For far too long in Rhode Island, the rich and the wealthy have been given privileges that normal people are not given. And it's not fair. Like it was mentioned, $1 billion we've lost in revenue since the tax cuts. And it's not just, oh, we shaved 1 or 2% off. 40% they got reduced from their taxes, which puts them at, it was 5.99% compared to the next tax, which is like 3.75%. The lowest actually is 3.75%. And the 3.75% class did not get a break, but those at 10% did, who were making above 500K did. And like I said, that resulted, you know, you said it, $1 billion that we've lost in revenue that could have gone to these social programs, our streets. People are struggling right now. They should not be paying more taxes than the wealthy. So I will fight tooth and nail to repeal the tax cuts for the rich. That is actually part of the core of my platform, repealing the tax cuts for the rich, because we need more equity when it comes to taxes.
Thank you so much. Representative Bia?
I also support repealing the tax cut for the rich, and in regards to what Michelle just said, we need to invest in our own empowerment. We need to invest in our own small businesses. Those who are repealing the tax cuts within our state, that would be great for us. And in addition to that, going back to the first question, going back to in regards to our Medicare, our like veterans, mental health issues. Those are places that, as a high school principal, high school is a microcosm of the real society that we have. So repealing those tax cuts, those money that we have, billions of dollars, that can be used like for mental health, and we're gun violence and everything in our streets, helping our taxpayer. That's why even 44% of our Providence tax is based on like our non-profit organization, like our, and as just recently the city council like a battle back and forth like for not to increase taxes within the world for us within the city. People that are like struggling every day, that go to work every day. So definitely I do agree that repealing those tax for the wealth that they were down there.
Thank you so much. Mario?
I am definitely will repeal the tax cut in the state of Rhode Island. I think it's unfair for the poor people. I think it's unfair for the poor community. You can see the difference between Newport, Postman, and other cities, wherever the rich people live, compared to Providence, Central Fork, Woonsocket, Pawtucket, or the poor city in the state. So whatever the people have that privilege, they have a better housing, they have better service, they have better schooling, and I think it's not fair. I think it's supposed to be equal, and I not only we appeal the tax cut, I will increase the tax to the rich people. I do believe it for too many years, they've had this privilege, and I don't see really how different they make it whatsoever. So we need more money, whatever my colleagues right here said, we need more money for hospital, we need more money for housing, we need more money to eliminate the homelessness in the state of Rhode Island. I think so it's overwhelming the amount of people in the street. I come from Cuba, and I understand that it's a communist country and it's a poor country, but in America, the best country in the world, the wealthy country in the world, it's unacceptable that we have too many homeless people, and then we have people that go to bed without food. We have people crying because they don't have a place to sleep, and we have students go to school and they don't even have material to learn, and to be fair, it's not correct. So yes, I definitely will increase and cut the taxes for the rich corporation.
Thank you. Jake?
Mario is absolutely right that more resources are needed for our public schools. One of the bills up at the Assembly this year would have diverted repealing those tax cuts to more education funding, and I thought that was an excellent policy suggestion. One question here, what year did we repeal the tax cuts for the rich, or did we pass the tax cuts?
2006.
So we did that in 2006 to be more competitive with Massachusetts, bringing our top tier tax rate below Massachusetts. I think it's interesting to see what has happened here and what has happened in Massachusetts since then. Since then, Massachusetts has become a worldwide leader in economic development, thereby showing that it has very little to do with our highest tax rate or anything like that. So we absolutely need to repeal the tax cuts for the rich. We need more tax brackets, not fewer. We need higher tax brackets, not lower. And we better have a millionaire's tax on the books, because that is the only way that we're going to have resources for our children in public schools. A few other things I just want to briefly mention. We need a more progressive tax structure, a less regressive one. Over the past several years, a lot of the bills that we fought for in the Assembly addressed regressive taxes. We have phased out the car tax, which was the single most regressive tax on Providence's working families. Our tax rate on your value of your car, which was also a regressive valuation structure. If you ever saw what your tax assessment was on your car, $35,000 for a 5-year-old Honda Pilot. Things you could never get back then in exchange for your car. I mean, what we're able to do and phase out that regressive tax, put more money back in the pockets of working families. And I think you saw that again with small businesses this year in the tangible tax. A progressive income tax structure is absolutely necessary. It needs to be revisited. We have one now, but we can do a lot better job with it. And still be economically competitive in Massachusetts.
Thank you so much. Our next question is specifically a more open-ended question. Really want to hear what specific policy ideas when it comes to being able to address poverty in this district. As you know, this is one of the lowest income districts in the entire state, and would really like to hear from y'all as to what some of the policies that you would support to combat poverty where you represent. I'll start it off with Mario.
Well, once again, if we have more money, we will have more opportunity to invest in poor community. We will have more opportunity to support a small business. We will have more opportunity to invest in housing and to fix our street, to have more security for our community. So definitely I will change a lot of the policies that we have in place right now. Right, wherever the money go, the state have a one formula. I don't remember something because I didn't even study before I come to the debate. But I know the money, the way they distribute the money, all this money, we portion of the money go to Newport, Postman's, and all these places. I know that when I went to Rhode Island College, I was studying my master's. It's funny that most of the people coming here from Rhode Island College. When I was studying my master's in administration, I know that it's unfair the distribution of the money at the state level. It's legal because the Senate voted for this kind of distribution, and most of the money is have an unfair distribution. That's what we have in Rhode Island. So we need to change the way we allocate the money in the state. We really need to take care of our poor community. We need really to invest in our children that are the future. Believe it or not, if we don't do that, we will be in trouble in the future. We have to compete with the rest of the world. Right now, we're only thinking about, oh, let's put a Newport to look good. Right now, Newport is one of the best cities to live in the United States. I don't know if you guys see the news. So what happened in Providence? We are the capital city, we are good. So we really need to invest
30
and change
seconds.
the policy that we have right now. We have to revise, like Jacob said, all of them, not only one. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Jake?
Of course, thanks. Just two quick things I just want to say on the outset of that. One, the folks that live year-round in Newport every year, it is not one of the richest communities we have in the state. And the folks down there are also struggling, just like they are throughout many communities in our state. So I don't think it is ever helpful to pit communities against one another. That said, we do have terribly distressed communities in our state, one of which is Providence. And one of the things that we did as we emerged from the first phase of COVID in November of 2020 to come back and pass a budget was make sure that we did not cut distressed communities aid, because it was so critical to making sure that our city could work to stabilize itself through that crisis. The first thing we absolutely need to do is revisit $15 an hour minimum wage. The state is on a pathway to a $15 an hour minimum wage. The sad reality of that is when we went down that pathway 3 years ago, $15 an hour is not what it was 3 years ago. Cost of living has gone up, bread has gone up, milk has gone up, eggs have gone up. The plight of working families has only gotten worse, even though their wages have gone up. So we need to look at the minimum wage, and that is something the Senate has always led on. We were the first to pass $15 an hour. We were the first to always pass the annual increase in the minimum wage, oftentimes with Mary Ellen Goodwin as the co-sponsor. The second thing I would really like us to look at is how can we contain, maybe not limit, the cost of housing. And before we get into home ownership options and increasing funding for pathways to home ownership, the other
30
thing
seconds.
we absolutely must do is divert the large swaths of money that we have set aside to deal with our housing crisis to direct build for public housing. We cannot afford to wait any longer for it to filter through the system. So I think the government can get involved in one way, and I would be more than happy to quietly champion, because they've already been introduced up at the State House, many of the measures to do that. Is that about good enough? Thanks.
Thank you so much. Representative Bibb?
The average income for District 1 residents is $37,000. That's an average income, $37,000. Just picture, imagine that. Exactly what Jake said. I'm going to refine exactly what Jake said. When we go to the market, the prices of milk has gone up. The prices of everything have gone up. What hasn't gone up is wages. Okay. So, as a sitting state rep, we have been working at the State House. And the $15 minimum wage, those are something that was decided a long time ago, and something that we have to take a look at and increasing that we're even making $20 per hour. Because one thing that is not increasing is wages is not increasing, but every other thing else around us is increasing. So helping us to increase wages that will help us to make sure that people can probably go to the market and purchase things safely and support their family. That's one. And secondly, to support our small businesses within this district. We have tons of small businesses within this district that haven't been supported by the state. And those are some of the things that I would have to take a look at as the next state senator, to start supporting our small business and small minority-owned businesses that's within the district. Because there is a difference between a small minority-owned
30
business
seconds.
and because I realized that define a minority-owned business, the criteria is totally different. So those are some of the things I'm going to be looking at as the next state senator, to make sure that we have a diversity for a small business, to start funding our small businesses, to start increasing. Then they'll be able to employ people within the community that will increase the average income within District 1. So those are things that's near and dear to my heart, to increase the wages to small businesses, minority small businesses in District 1.
Thank you. Michelle?
Excuse me. For that, you have to change the current policy. To do whatever you say, you have to change the current policy. You are already on the state. Why you didn't do nothing?
So, definitely appreciate your comments, but because of time and because I want to give everybody equal opportunity, I want to refrain the comments to 2 minutes to each question. Thank you, though.
So in order to address poverty, we need to take a multidisciplinary approach. A couple of these approaches I am absolutely on board with. We need to increase the minimum wage. People are not earning living wages, not just in this district, but throughout all of Rhode Island. We need to relook at the education funding formula, because I truly believe that education is the key out of poverty. So we need to really, really look at the education funding formula. Housing. When I think of poverty, I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need housing, we need safety, we need food. Affordable housing is not affordable to the average Rhode Islander. We need public and low-income housing. That is how we're going to get more people housed, not affordable housing. That just gives incentives and subsidies to large developers and out-of-state developers. We need public and low-income housing. And we need it now. And expanding eligibility to some of these programs, because the income limits they're not working. Even if you fall outside, if you're making more than the requirements for a specific program like SNAP or LIHEAP, that does not mean you do not need the program. People who fall right outside of those brackets are in dire need and they are struggling. So we need to expand eligibility to these supportive services so that we can support people with housing, utilities, food, education, so that we can then tackle poverty.
Thank you so much. Naoka.
I agree with you, Michelle, on many levels. But what I seem to think about when we talk about poverty and how Maslow's hierarchy of needs is essential to everyone, I think about the amount of money that goes into our nonprofits that all do the same thing. We're a city that loves to, champion small businesses and not fund them appropriately or help them with the education they need to run them appropriately. That being said, a lot of the nonprofits in the city do the same thing. If you want your city to run at the best that it can possibly be, what is the problem with consolidating your company with another company to complete the same task with more people? We can then increase the minimum wage because now we've allocated some funds in a very concentrated area where now everybody can get a piece of the pie. What is the issue with that? The nonprofits are great because it shows that our community cares, but we don't need a small one over here, a small one over there that hardly gets any funding to begin with and are all struggling for the same funding. The community organizations are great too because there are a lot of free programs. Think about the Small Business Association, the Center for Women in Enterprise. There's so many different programs out there that are willing and federally funded, not state funded, federally funded, to get people the education they need in order to help them build their businesses and grow as a family. I come from a small business home. My dad is a master craftsman. He had a 5th grade education and built a business himself.
30 seconds.
He had the education he needed and was guided with the legislators on how to do his business right. He's been in business for over 20 years. And that is how I got to where I am today, is because of hard work and not relying on anyone but our education.
Thank you. One of the conversations and the answers that have been brought up regarding this question had to do with the minimum wage. And although I did not have it on my questionnaire, I would be interested by a raise of hands whether or not you would support a $19 minimum wage. Would you raise your hand if you would support something like that?
$19 minimum wage?
$19 minimum wage.
Right now, or?
Right now.
In today's economy?
Correct.
I would support a pathway to that.
Yeah.
Like we did in
I
Handbook.
do believe that we have to do it progressive. So we have to go to $15 and then, I don't know, 16 and then 19. Because a small business cannot afford to jump
Exactly.
from
Exactly.
12 to 19. It's not really, it's It's not possible.
It's not feasible.
That is one person that work at the bakery, that one person that working in the child care, coming,
So-
you know.
I just want to be clear. You would not support a $19 minimum wage as a piece of legislation next year in the General Assembly?
No.
You would?
I will
Yes.
support, I will support systems, you know. like-
Yes. Mario, what, yes or no? No? Naoka, no?
Yeah, I don't know, let me think.
Okay.
I would, to be clear, I would support a pathway to $19 an hour.
So-
The same way we, to be clear, that seems like a difference, you would support one tomorrow, Michelle, but I would support a pathway to 19 like we did a pathway to 15, because quite frankly, 15 is probably, or 19 is probably what 15 was 4 years ago. And it's unconscionable to let folks live on $15 an hour.
But I will support it, yeah, for the future, yes, definitely I will support it. for the future.
Thank you very
But not
much.
for today.
Thank you.
I will support it for the future.
Thank you. That was a good question. Got a lot of interesting
Yeah, but
answers.
I mean, just,
It's not.
in addition to that, that's why I say, yes, I would support it. Right now, small business, when you go to the market, when increasing the prices of milk, there is no pathway with the prices of milk. There's no pathway for the prices of eggs. There's no pathway when they change the prices tomorrow. So people that are working, they're going out, so there's no pathway. We're gonna change something to support people that's in District 1. We make the decision, a bold decision, and we make that move forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also for the people in the audience, I encourage all of you to also ask these questions to your candidates, because we are limited by time, but I thought it would be an interesting question to ask. The next question has to do with police accountability. Throughout the country, and here in Rhode Island specifically, there has been talks about whether or not to reform or to repeal the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights. Just recently, as in this year, the state Senate and the General Assembly voted to approve a reform version of a bill, but there are calls to repeal LEOBOR as well. To add a little bit more context to the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, it's an extra set of protections to law enforcement that is tacked on to what the department picks and chooses whether or not to discipline an officer. And so my question to the panelists here today, and I'll start with Naoka, is how do you feel like is the best route to address the problems with the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights? Is it reform? Is it repeal?
I think at the moment we have to ask our law enforcement officers that, because from my discussions and conversations with them, most of them know what the Bill of Rights are. Most of them are good people. And most of them, like myself, have that second, legislative body, if you want to call it that tells you whether you're doing a good job at your job or not. And being a nurse and having an advisory board that I would have to sit in front of if something goes awry in my career as well. I don't think I want someone outside my profession telling me or that we're gonna revise this because you're just not equipped to make that decision as a nurse. I think that the career itself, especially since the pandemic, has become increasingly dangerous for them. These are people with families, these are people who go to work just like you and I. And the things that they had to deal with, it's unconscionable. I wanted to be a cop when I was young. I wanted to be a cop. My dad was like, nope, not for you. So I became a nurse instead. So I would definitely have that be an internal thing. I don't think we as the community needs to touch it. I think that they need to come up with the right conscionable decision on what to do with LEOBOR.
Thank you. Michelle?
We need to repeal LEOBOR. Police officers, just like everybody else, need to be held accountable for the atrocities that they commit. No other job that I have had have I been able to get away with anything that police officers have been getting away with in the state of Rhode Island. Here, we've had officers shoot fleeing teens and get away with it. Just get paid, get on paid vacation, basically. We've had police officers punch political rivals in the face and just get away with it. We've had
Please refrain from conversation.
We've had police officers get accused of domestic violence and charged and just get put on unpaid leave. Police officers should be held to a higher standard than regular citizens. Instead, they are not being held accountable for the crimes that they do commit. They are being judged by a jury of their own police officers. And I don't have to be a police officer to know that shooting a fleeing teen is wrong. So I am for repealing labor, and we need to increase transparency and accountability.
Thank you so much. Jake?
Labor is an immensely complicated issue because we have to start this discussion by recognizing that it is already currently state law. So while it is very easy to say we have to repeal labor, the reality of that situation is much more complicated because that would require passing a bill out of both chambers and then the governor signing it that repeals just that. So
Please refrain from comment.
when the
Thank
Senate
you.
passed bill revising labor just 2 months ago out of the Senate with overwhelming support, I think one was opposed, that took 3 years to get done. And I was at the center of those negotiations, and that bill made immense progress. It would have made immense progress if it came to fruition because it did 3 things. One, it increased summary discipline, the period by which you can't invoke labor, from 2 days unpaid leave to, I believe it was 12 days unpaid leave, which according to law enforcement scheduling is 3 weeks of unpaid time without any sort of appeal or anything like that. That said, it also, and this was the hardest part, included on the revised panel 2 members of the public to allow for civic participation. It was perfect by no means. It could have gone a lot farther. One of the things that you'll often see is that you have chiefs disciplining officers for minor infractions. I truly believe that labor and some other things should not apply if a civilian initiates a complaint, particularly if it's a use of force complaint. So I think there's a lot of progress that can be made on labor, but we have to deal within the reality of the situation right now.
Thank you. Mario?
Well, you say, coming to the Senate tomorrow, I will revise. So I will send it for reform. So I think so that whatever Jake said, it's a lot of progress to be made, and I think so you're supposed to make the progress. I think so the public's supposed to be safe. I think so the people supposed to feel like you are there to take care of them. They're not supposed to be afraid of policemen, and policemen has to pay consequence. I not agree with Michelle saying that there has to be so high standard everybody else. I think so they are regular citizens, and they have to be held to a standard like every single profession. So we have to treat them with respect, we have to treat them with dignity, but they have to also be respecting the public and taking care of the population. That is why they are there, is why we pay for them. So I will reform definitely,
Thank you so much. Representative Diop?
Yes, I did vote on the reforming of labor within the House floor. So I do agree just to reform it, like every other institution, right? We keep looking at it as 1 or 2 years. We look at those stuff and we reform it and we keep moving forward. So those, I think, even as an educator, as a principal, I look at stuff for teachers, for education. We keep reforming it, refining it, and keep making it better as we go along. So those are things I would support to reform it, not repeal it, but reform it.
So you would reform?
Yes,
Okay,
reform.
awesome. Thank you so much. My next question has to deal with education. So over the last couple of years, there has been an increased fight for an increased amount of charter seats. Overwhelmingly, in Black and brown communities, there seems to be a want for Black and brown kids to be able to access things like school choice. My question to you is, do you support charter schools and the expansion of charter school seats? I'll start it off with you, Representative.
Well, when it comes to education, I've been in education now for over 25, 30 years. I taught at classical high school, Mount Pleasant High School, Nathaniel Green Middle School, assistant principal of Mount Pleasant, assistant principal of Nathaniel Green Middle School, and currently I'm a principal at Dr. George Alvarez High School from Anwood Avenue. When it comes to education is my passion, because without education I wouldn't be sitting before you here today. All right. So when it comes to that, when it comes to like charter school, I support all public education. Right. In regards to charter school, I think that the funding of charter school, they should have like a specific funding for charter school instead of taking funding away from public schools to go into charter school. The charter school should have their own funding formula the same way as the public school has its own funding formula. And charter school should also accept all students, like public school accept all students. Student with disability, student with IEP, with learning disability, everything else, public school accept all of those students. Charter school should also accept all of those students. So when it comes to like a choice of education, where black and brown students should go to school, charter, public, as long as it's a level playing field, I support all education institutions. This is my passion, this is what I've been doing for the last like 30 years. Because with our education, this path for our black and brown students won't be successful within the state and city.
Thank you so much, Representative. We will go to Michelle.
Very well said, Representative Villa. I agree with what Representative Villa said. I believe that charter schools do pull away funding from public schools, and they should have different funding formulas. I support equal access to education for all communities, and choice, equal choice. Yeah, basically, Representative Villa said it really well.
Mayuka?
Well, I'm for school choice. Everybody knows that. But my first question is, where do we fund charter schools and public schools? Public schools get our tax dollars, almost $17,000 per student in Providence. If we're going to have another tax formula for the charter schools, where's that money coming from? Because I've been taxed enough. So I think the tax dollars, unfortunately, needs to follow the student. They need to be able to go to the school of their choice. And you've already paid into that system. We have too many administrators in the Providence school system, and we see how that works out. We have too many administrators in these public schools, and you see how that works out. And our schools are completely failing. I mean, 42%, 32%. Who would send their child there? I wouldn't. And I work tooth and nail, day and night, to make sure our child gets a proper education. I can't afford it, but I make sure I can. It's called sacrifice, and that is the most important thing for my child, is sacrificing so that she can get the best education possible. So if Providence cannot provide that, I need another option. You need another option. And you shouldn't just be stuck in Providence to get that education, because clearly the schools aren't doing it. And we're in this really niche pocket of just craziness when it comes to the schools, that you need to give parents another option. You need to give some kind of solace with all the taxing and everything else. I mean, we already aren't getting enough in our paychecks to begin with. So give us that one break. Give us the ability to give our children another step. That's all.
Thank you. Mario?
I definitely support the expansion of the charter school, but I will say this: some charter schools are very successful, some charter schools are not. So I will support the expansion, but I also will put my back right there, like if they are not successful and they don't say and they don't do whatever they say or whatever they mean, they're supposed to be suspended and eliminated. Because we have a right and a lot of schools that they are not doing, and they are charter school. So I think they are supposed to be accountable too, right? So I will support them, but we have to trust, but we have to keep supervising, because a lot of them are not doing any different at all. And I do support educational choice as a teacher and as an administrator too, because I have a master in administration too, to be a principal, but I decided to do that right now. But I do believe that charter schools are good when they do whatever they're supposed to be doing. In Rhode Island, we have a lot of them that are failing, that they are not doing whatever they're supposed to be doing. But you are right too, it's the same money. The money is supposed to follow the student. We don't have any more money. But wait, if we increase the rich people taxes, we have more money for our children. So it's why I was saying before that we need to increase and repeal the tax for the rich and bring more money to here, increase the tax for the rich. We can have a much better school, we can have better education, computers, materials, so everything's coming together. You see how that works?
Thank you so much. Jake?
There's an old Chinese proverb, I think, that says, "Many be born in perilous times." And like it or not, the next senator elected from this district will be thrown into perilous times as it relates to education in our city. And there was no bigger champion in Providence Public Schools, in the state senate or at the state house, and of our Providence Teachers Union than Mary Ellen Goodwin. And that is irrefutable. If that voice is gone, the current expansion plan for our charter schools would call for 44% of the seats in this city to be publicly funded, I believe, a combination probably there of public and private charter schools. That is dangerously close to a majority of the kids in our city going to charter schools, and thereby a tipping point for a whole generation of students. A core function of government is providing strong public education. Both of my parents are public school teachers. Much like our police officers, the jobs of our public school teachers and the jobs of our police officers have changed more over the last 3 decades than probably any other 2 professions. They are called upon to be guidance counselors, mental health counselors, at times parents. Before I pick charter or public, I'm going to pick teachers and giving our teachers the resources they need to provide strong 21st century classrooms. I cannot support any expansion of charter schools beyond that which is already called for and been approved by the Board of Education.
30 seconds.
Which to me is a very distressing number that lingers very close to 50%. Because if we lose that core function of government, what is next? And if we lose that focus and that dire, fierce urgency of now to improve Providence public schools, you are pretty much saying to at least half the generation of children, you are a lost generation because, well, you better be lucky enough to have got into a charter school lottery. So we need an unqualified champion of public education in the city, in the state senate. And Mom will put me in a timeout if that's not it.
And well, just a quick note on that.
Please, just because Mario said
Yes.
we're trying to interject, I want to make sure that
just to follow up on the public of China. And
I do have to be fair to everybody.
I
And
know.
Mario, I did say
Yes,
to
and
refrain
we
to
just
2 minutes.
I get it, moderator, but Jessica, I just want
Representative,
the resident to
please.
know that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next question has to do with solitary confinement. Solitary confinement has been banned and deemed inhumane by multiple countries in the United Nations. Legislation over the last couple of years in the General Assembly has been introduced by Representative Leona Felix, as well as Senator Acosta in the State Senate in Rhode Island. Where do you stand on this issue, and how would you vote on such legislation? I will start it off with Michelle.
I would support Rep. Felix and Senator Acosta's legislation on solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is inhumane. I'm a social worker. You don't have to be a social worker to know what it does to someone mentally, to know that it's torture. When I think of solitary confinement, I actually think back to the isolation that I felt in Afghanistan, being completely isolated from the news around you, from your family, from your loved ones, and it really is inhumane. So I do not agree with solitary confinement. I would support Rep. Felix and Senator Acosta in their bills.
Thank you very much. Representative Villa?
Yes, I was a co-sponsor on both on those bills, also on the House bill. So definitely, I do support that and certainly Representative Felix bill, and just I was a co-sponsor. So I was one of the champions for us in the solitary confinement. So that's my record speaks for itself that I'm 100% in support of that.
Thank you so much, Representative. Mario?
We support the bill that go against the solitary confinement, and I will go further than that. I will also be sure that in Rhode Island people don't get abused because they are in inmate population. So I think we have a lot of abuse in Rhode Island, and that can be from food, from clothing, and more than that. So I will work because people paying already. So if they pay already, the crime, they're not supposed to be abused. They're supposed to be treated with respect and dignity. And also I will try to work to liberate all the people that are in jail injustice, because remember before marijuana was illegal in Rhode Island, we used to have people in jail for that issue that's supposed to be liberated. And we have a lot of Latinos and black population in jail for anything. So we have to reform the system in Rhode Island. Not only that, we have to reform the entire system. And I will work for that.
Thank you so much, Mario. Yep.
I would support that bill. Being a mental health worker at Butler Hospital and turning a nurse at Butler Hospital, the utilization of what we call quiet room or a QR was a doctor's order. You had to have been extremely dangerous to yourself or somebody else on the unit in order to even go into QR. And we had to check on you every 15 minutes. There was someone sitting in the ante room with you so that you don't harm yourself. And the order had to be rewritten hourly. So to have someone in solitary confinement, especially in a situation where they're most likely destitute, where they're most likely mentally unstable at that point, that's torture. That's torture.
Thank you. Jake?
I think anytime, Michelle hit the nail on the head with this, talking about her own lived experience, isolation, whether we're talking about our seniors, whether we're talking about our inmates, whether we're talking about those that serve illegally overseas, is inhumane and comes at a cost and usually at great personal sacrifice and destabilizing the mental health. So yes, I think we have made leaps and bounds to deal with the prison industrial complex here in Rhode Island. One of the first things I was tasked with when I was promoted to legal counsel to the Senate Majority Leader was dealing with justice reinvestment, which was a package of bills sponsored by Senator McCaffrey that dealt with probation and parole reform. And that has reduced our prison populations, reduced recidivism, and reduced the number of meaningless offenses, parole, probation offenses that send people back into that cycle of recidivism. We also have to look at the crimes that put people in prison, and a lot of times they're unconscionable that there would be a prison sentence associated with that crime. For the last 3 years in the Senate, I've been fighting kind of tooth and nail with Senator Acosta to redefine what a felony is here in the state of Rhode Island. And just on the last point, we talked about the war on drugs and its disproportionate impact on communities of color. And I was very proud to draft the cannabis legalization bill that became law in the state of Rhode Island. And there were two key things that were put in there that were so important. One was automatic expungement after a lot of advocacy from the community, which was truly heard because it wasn't in the first draft. And the last thing was ensuring that these licenses were not just given out to big corporations, reserving a portion of these licenses for workers' co-ops after we heard from the community, and also reserving a portion of these licenses for qualified applicants. Therefore, meaning that you came from a community that had been impacted by the war on drugs, so that it wasn't just individuals coming in from out of state and purchasing these licenses. So I'm immensely proud of that legislation that I
10 seconds.
wrote with my own hands, because it's been called the most progressive form of cannabis legalization in the country. So that's how I feel on all justice-related issues.
Thank you so much. Before we go into our last question, I wanted to tell the audience that we will have an opportunity are in time. I want to say, again, thank you to Smith Hill Community Library. They do close at 8 o'clock. I do want to end this event at around 7:45 to give everybody a chance to leave. We'll have this question, and then I'll have a couple of opportunities for the audience to be able to ask the questions to the candidates. But the last question has to do with the LGBTQIA+ community. In recent years, there has been a rise of anti-trans / LGBTQIA+ legislation, both nationally and locally. How would you support LGBTQ+ members of your district and state, and how would you combat legislation that seeks to inflict harm on this community? I will start us off with Mario.
Well, basically, I do believe that we have to be clear about the harassment and the abuse that the community being issued in the state of Rhode Island for years. So I do believe that they have to be protected like an entire city, and they have the equal right for job, for opportunity, for loans, for housing. So I will create legislation as a senator to protect the LGBT community statewide. Because basically right now, believe it or not, we have a lot of suicide. We have a lot of issues in the school. A lot of times parents don't know what's going on with the children because they don't want to talk about it. They feel like they will be discriminated by the family, especially by their friends. Sometimes the teacher don't know what to do. So we have to working a lot more harder and to protect our children. That right away from the beginning, you never know what age they will feel like they will belong to this particular community. So we have to start from the beginning, from the school, and then go to the state level to be sure that we are not discriminating anybody, because they are part of our family, they are part of our community, they are like everybody else. So that's what we do. Analyze every single legislation and approve and create a legislation law that protects the community statewide. That's what we do in general.
Thank you so much. Jake?
Never let it see the light of day. There were a number of anti-trans bills introduced in the Senate this year. None of them received a hearing. A lot of them were in the Senate Education Committee. One of the roles, one of my jobs as Chief of Staff is to sit there and advise on what bills get a hearing. I talked with the chair of that committee, Chairman Kino, and we just thought, no, don't even give it a hearing. Don't give hate any safe harbor. Unfortunately, because of our Supreme Court, what we've seen is that culture wars will begin to fight out in our state legislatures across the country. So it's more important than ever that you know where your state senator stands when it comes to rights that we have fought for over the years. Finally got on the books in some instances 5 years ago, in others 10 years ago, in others, and talking about Planned Parenthood versus Casey, more than 30 years ago. And when you talk about electing someone who's going up to that building now, it's very important that you know where they stand. And I will give hate no harbor.
Thank you. Representative Bia?
Thank you. As Jake just alluded to, the most important now to know exactly where your state senator stands. The next person that's going to replace the beacon for Smith Hill. So, as a high school principal, to be exact 3 years ago, I'm the only principal in the state of Providence that created a club for the LGBTQ community at my high school. And I was the only also principal also where in those cases after school, we have numerous of meetings and it was a safe place for them, and they have my 100% support. And we have the state of Rhode Island flag, we have a city flag, and we have the United States of America flag, and we have like the LGBTQ flag in front of the school. Those kids were proud because those kids felt that they were part of our community, right? So those are supporting diverse community in entire District 1. It doesn't matter who you are, your read, your color, your religion, everyone, as your next state senator, you will have my full support. So I believe we shouldn't discriminate against anyone based on who you are. So this is exactly your next state senator, what he stands for.
Thank you so much. Nayoka?
I think that we should provide support to those who are in need. We have a mental health crisis in the state of Rhode Island and in the nation. Having those resources and having people who can help our students and help our adults through the toughest of times is very important. Regardless of bills that are being thrown left and right, regardless of the hate, when you boil it down, there's something there that needs to be dealt with very delicately. And doing so, you need the appropriate people to help you through that. Having the support systems in schools are great, but if you're not able to utilize the resources that are available through actual mental health care, then you can really tarnish someone. You can really tarnish what they're going through and how they build from that. So I look at it like I look at most things from a healthcare perspective, and I look at it delicately. It is not something that I'm struggling with, but any struggle needs someone who's able to delicately help you through that struggle. And that is how I would look at dealing with the LGBTQ community.
Thank you so much. Michelle?
I'm in full support of the LGBTQ plus community. I believe we should codify their rights in our state constitution. They should have same access to support services, to protections that any Rhode Islander has. We need to unite and fight against hate. I remember when I was a social work intern at Central Falls School District advocating for the first gender-neutral bathroom in the school district and writing that policy, and that was very important to me because I believe you should have a safe place to use the bathroom, gender-neutral. I believe that it should be codified in our state constitution because we should leave no margin for marginalization. The community faces way too much hate. We need to spread love, not hate.
Thank you so much. So at this moment, I will open it up to questions. I'll go to Pat Ford. Thank you.
Pat Ford, Coalition Radio Network, here as press, but I'd love to take the opportunity to ask questions. The Rhode Island State Senate this year was largely an exercise in extreme dysfunction. Hundreds of bills never got the time of day. Entire evenings were dedicated to a subset of bills. I sat with a number of people in this room and on a number of occasions until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning so that they could be afforded their 2 minutes of testimony. Obscene. Significant legislation like debate over legal board, defelonization of small quantities of narcotics, the ending of solitary confinement, which, by the way, if Rhode Island was an individual nation, we would be considered a torture state by the United Nations. Those bills were never given the proper time of day, despite in several cases that legislation being offered at their 5th and 6th and 7th year. So my question to all of you is, what will you do to end that dysfunction? Most importantly, what will you do to alter Senate rules so that one individual can no longer be a gatekeeper to whether it be criminal justice reform, economic reform, or any of the thousands of issues addressing ordinary Rhode Islanders? Thank you.
I'll open that to anybody who wants to answer the question first. He should have been the moderator. Anybody?
I can answer that. As a legislator or as a legislative body for the state of Rhode Island, we must realize that those people sitting in the State House are elected officials based on the community and their constituents. No one person gets that right to make any of those decisions about anyone's life. No one person. So when we're developing bills, when we're developing legislation that's going to affect someone's livelihood and their entire family, this needs to be a debate. This needs to be something that is handled with care, especially when it comes to the criminal justice system.
Thank you. And I'll just call on people.
Can I just ask for the questions from the audience? Do you expect everyone to respond? Or?
You don't have to.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. Well, basically, as a community organizer, community leader, I want to be senator to make a difference. But I want to be senator to allow the people to see that we can make it. I do believe the community needs representation. So right now when I walk in the street and talking to people, and talking to young people and the children, I said, you have to follow up, you have to working hard and represent your community. So in order for us to change that position that the state legislature have right now, we need to have more people from the community representing the community. Because whatever happened, most of the senators over there have been 4 years in power. So it's hard to come in and say, only one person will change all of this. So I go there with the best intention. We have to learn about the process, but we need more people from the community to go there and make it a difference, because that's the way we will change a lot of the policies and a lot of the bills that will help the community, all right? They will help the main population, they will help the hunger in the city, they will help to bring more money to the city. And I'm sorry, whatever other people think about it, Newport is a rich community. It's in the news everywhere, so I don't know why people think it's poor community. And the money is going to all these places. I don't know who said that money comes from Providence. When you go to Chapran, you can see it's not money there whatsoever. And when you walk around the city, you can see that we really need to make a difference. We need more legislators, we need more people like him to work for the community, not for all the interests. We need people that really make a difference at the state level. And sometimes it's good to look good, look fancy, but we go there and we don't do anything. We have to go there and work for the people, represent the people, and make a difference.
Thank you so much.
That's what I said.
Thank you. Michelle? Go ahead, Jake.
So Mario's absolutely right, and the single biggest way that you can get more people from the community to have their voice heard at the State House is to elect them to the State House, and the single biggest deterrent to that right now is having a part-time legislature. And if we want to talk about really changing the way things are done at the State House, well, if folks in the legislature have day jobs, like Representative Dia does, we could have hearings at noon if they didn't have to have day jobs. Unfortunately, because they have day jobs, they can't have hearings until 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night. And when you talk about solitary confinement, when you talk about justice reinvestment, when you talk about justice reform, gun reform, those hearings do draw a lot of attention. They draw 10, 12 hours of testimony. I can remember when we were talking about codifying Roe versus Wade, which we were able to do in 2019. Those hearings went till 5 in the morning because oftentimes they didn't start till 6 p.m. the night before, and you want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard at the State House. So I think if you want to work or talk seriously about that, you need a full-time legislature where they can operate throughout the course of the day. And if someone from the community wants to run and they're making minimum wage and they're working an hourly job, they could transition to a full-time job getting paid as a state legislator like you have in Massachusetts. Right now, you have retirees up there, you have teachers up there, you have lawyers up there. That trend has changed a little bit. And there's one more thing I want to add about simple possession, which I take very personal.
30 seconds.
I worked on the legislation to defelonize simple possession, and we were at the event where you received an award because of your coverage of that issue. And I have been proud to work hand in hand with the community to defelonize simple possession.
It's been 2 years since I won that award, and we still don't have a damn law. It's that simple. That's one of the simplest pieces of legislation that can instantly change the lives of everyone in Rhode Island. It is.
It doubles the amount.
Thank you.
Yes, Representative Dia.
So thank you, Pat, for that question. So Pat, you know, all of those bills, I was co-sponsor of those bills, and we voted those bills, and those bills came out of the House and went to the Senate. And just one of the things as the next senators, as I'm talking about, we need more diversity in state government. We need more diversity in the state Senate to be able to change some of the stuff that impacted us in our community. So our community needs people that actually knows exactly how to feel what goes on with the community, people that know the people in the community, people that understand the community, the diversity in state government. So all of those bills that passed up that have a direct impact on our minority community, I voted for all of those bills. I was a co-sponsor of some of those bills. Right, and make sure that, and thank you, Mario, for saying that. So some of us that we are really working hard to diversify our community, and also to make sure that things goes through and changing the Senate rule will help to transform some of those, like one person has some power to make sure that certain things doesn't go through. So it's one of the things that I would do as the next state senator to make sure that those Senate rules are changed, that those bills will pass through and make sure that it's being heard by people in the community that have a direct impact on us.
Like Jake, I believe that we should have a full-time legislature. If you should be able to make a living wage if you want to be a full-time legislature. And that's not the only barrier to running for office and being a legislator. Money is a huge barrier. We continue to pour more money into politics, which contributes to just one person being the sole decider of certain things. We should be taking money out of politics. Last legislative session, the individual contribution limit was doubled from 1,000 to 2,000. And it makes it really hard for average people to get into office. For us to have that representation, that diversity that our communities need. And we need to fight. We need to fight for our community. We need to keep special interests and keep money out of politics so that we work for our community. And you can see campaign records are public. So you can go to ricampaignfinance.com and you can see people's records and you can see what special interests each individual answers to. And we should be accountable and we should be answering to the members of our community, not to special interests, because they donate and they expect something in return. We should be taking care of our community.
Thank you so much. We'll go to the fellow. Please state your name and ask your question.
Okay, my name is Theo Regan, and the issue of the police bill of rights seems to be a pretty contentious issue. And my point, or one of the things I want to ask about, is community policing. And there seems to be a disconnect between citizens and police. You see the police at accident scenes. You see the police at crime scenes. You don't see the police every day. You don't get to know who these folks are. And I think in some communities it's probably an us against them kind of thing.
Yes.
So where do you folks stand on this issue, and how do you see it, community policing and it increasing in the state and the city?
So just is a question on police relations and communities and community
Yes.
policing. Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Well, I do believe the new mayor-elect, Mayor Smiley, he was talking and he's working to increase community policing, to bring the people to the community, to build that relationship between the common people and the police. So in that way, won't be like call the police when they say that people are in trouble. The policeman will be all the time in the street, and I will support that. So he wants to get more money, he wants to get more policemen to bring the people to the community. All right, so I will support that 100%. And also, I would like to stimulate the people from members of the community to come in to be a policeman, to represent the community. Because sometimes when you go to different community and the policeman, doesn't matter how good you are, you only come in and you have 4 people that doesn't look like the rest of the community. People feel like they are afraid. They come to do something against us. They are not our friends. We don't know them. They won't like us. So the people develop that interrelationship, and also they come in from the community. You have Black, Latino, Asian, white, all these people together, and then the community will feel safe, and we will eliminate a lot of the issues that Chap Brown had the other day. The other day I was there. I was walking, looking for people to sign. And guess what? 5 minutes that I left, they shoot 3 people. I said, oh my God, I was there. You know what I mean? I was waiting there. I said, oh my God, we was lucky that we left. So why we have to live in that situation? And the day before I was in Chapman, I went to almost 10 o'clock, meeting people, talking to people, and I said, we live in dangerous time, dangerous places.
10 seconds.
I think we have to eliminate that. We have to work with the mayor, we have to work with the state to get money to fund the police, only fund the police, to get people that really make it a difference, but they have to look and live with the community.
Thank you so much.
I think that he's right with that. And I do like the idea of community policing. I do like the idea of bringing back our community watch. I also believe that we should bring our police officers out more often on their bicycles. I mean, we have some lovely bike paths out there. Let's utilize them. And I think that, people seeing the police officers out there walking the beat like they used to. When I first moved to Providence, they used to do that. I used to see police everywhere. And the past 3 years has changed the dynamics of the city completely. It's been locked down. It was in disarray for a while. I mean, you saw all the riots. And I think that because of that, we have now a shortage. People are afraid. People are very much afraid to even say they want to be a police officer anymore. I've seen the calls for people to join the police force. And how many in the community are trying to join that? Nobody. It's nobody. Because you'll have things like Leah Moore coming at you. You'll have things like you're getting in trouble for looking at someone the wrong way. Who wants to be in that position? So I think that we as citizens need to sometimes take our safety into our own hands as well. We need to learn how to be safe as well. And we shouldn't have to depend on the police to save us. We should be able to protect ourselves as well.
Thank you. Like I said, this is an optional question, so if anybody would want to jump into it or...
So I do agree with community policing. I mean, this is one of the things that basically the staple, should be the staple of our community. Community policing, you create a relationship with the people that live in the neighborhood. The people in the neighborhood know who the police officers are. So then when things happen, they can have that open communication with the police officer, not like a strange person rolling around with the car, coming back and start asking the question, then we feel intimidated about people that we don't know. So those are things that helps, because just last week when I was canvassing in Chad Brown, fortunately it was a group of my former students, about these kids up at like 19, 20, 21, sitting together, and I saw a cop, the police car just drove by and it stopped and started walking towards the kids, started asking the kids questions. So the kids told me, say, hey guys, what's going on? So then at that particular point in time, I had a conversation with them. And they let the kids go. But the question, the thing was, so when I asked the kid, there was another lady standing there. I said, does this happen frequently in our community? And she said, yes. She said, one of the things I want back is the community policing. She said that. She said back in the days, we had like cops with a police officer would ride around with bicycles on horses in the Chad Brown area. So like we had relationship with those. We had relationship with that. So those are things that automatically I'm in strong support of. And one of the things is I just had a meeting with the mayor and staff last week, hoping that the next police academy that's coming up, that anyone in Providence, a Providence resident, will automatically have a points up on anyone else who's going to apply to the Providence Police Academy, because we want people from our community to be police officer for us. All right, so those are things, because according to him right now, they're short of 100 police officers. They should be about 520, they're about 420 right now. So they're short of 100 police officers. But the key here is we need those police officers to be from our community. They should be very diverse, that they look like us, like our teachers. Our teachers should look like the students. Police officers should look like us, and the builders community, to be part of the community. Even if you're not from the city, you move in the city and be part of us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Michelle, do you want to go? All right. I agree with what Representative Villa was saying. I think any sort of incentive we can do to diversify our police force here in Providence is a good thing. We started doing that about 10 years ago under Mayor Tavares' administration. In my time canvassing the community, I've certainly heard that folks, particularly in Chad, want the police to be more active members of the community, not just driving around in their cars. And there seems to be a disconnect between the discussions that are happening, because those are discussions that I'm having on the doorstep, individuals that live there, They want to be able to have that frequent relationship with police. They feel like a lot of times they only see them after horrific tragedies, and those tragedies usually are the result of preventable gun violence. So I think any discussion too about public safety should also include gun violence and how we're going to prevent gun violence in the city. But I think more community policing, based on my conversations over the last 4 months, seems to be the answer. But then there also appears to be a disconnect, because then we talk about having a police academy in the city, and that becomes a hotly debated issue. When we know we're 100 police short, or what have you, when you listen to the command staff. So I don't know why that disconnect exists, why that maybe adversarial discussion exists when everyone seems to be asking for a better relationship with police that also includes more accountability. Fortunately, all patrolmen now in the state of Rhode Island, because of reforms made at the Assembly, wear body cams. That's a critical reform that also occurred. And also now, because
30 seconds.
of new ordinance at the city level, interactions with police are supposed to be documented by patrolmen. So I think a lot of the ideas behind that increased accountability should have led to a more proactive relationship with police. It has not occurred, and it's still a hotly contested topic that I'm just trying to listen to a lot of folks in the community about.
Thank you so much. Michelle?
I echo most of the sentiments a lot of my peers have said. I am in strong support of more community policing. You know, I miss the days where you would see police officers riding around in bikes and have positive interactions with them and just build positive relationships with them in the community, especially building those positive relationships between the police and our youth, and having youth have positive role models that inspire them to, you know, be great. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's it.
Thank you so much. I will go to Councilman Graves, who is Councilwoman Graves, I'm sorry. Whoever would have, it's going to be the last question, whoever has it. Go ahead.
I enjoyed all your answers. I enjoyed the diversity of the questions and the diversity of the answers and the diversity of the people that are sitting up here in front of me. My question is housing. I know we kind of covered it. It's a statewide thing. What are you going to do about the housing situation? I mean, we're hearing all these promises and disappointments from, you know, the homeless, but it's not just the homeless. It's the one that's living paycheck to paycheck. It's the one whose landlord decides, okay, well, Joe across the street is getting $1,200, and I'm only getting, getting $2,000. I'm only getting $1,200. Let me just raise the rent up on this person by $100 or $200 or $300 or $400 a month, knowing that person is barely paying the rent as it is. We know we have a housing supply issue. So it's going to be kind of, what are we going to do about the fact we don't have enough housing, number one? What are we going to do about the fact that we need to do some kind of rent control? There's no way that we can keep going the way we're going. You're talking about the bread is high. I can afford bread. I may not be able to afford rent, you know. So what do you see? And it has to be statewide, because everybody, all the homeless are coming to the city of Providence because a lot of these other places don't have any facilities for them to go to. They don't have the resources. We don't have the resources. So they're coming here, and everybody's looking at the homeless situation, and they think it's all Providence. No, it's not. So what are we going to do statewide? I know you're from but what are we going to do statewide about those issues?
I'm going to go from Jake all the way down to end with Michelle, and then we'll go there. Jake?
So, a few years ago, affordable housing became a buzzword in the lexicon of the State House. And I think it was Michelle earlier who said, it's not just about affordable housing, it's actually about housing affordability. And that doesn't just mean home ownership, that obviously means rent and all sorts of things that go with it. This is a beautiful district. Senate District 1 is a beautiful district, rich in diversity, rich in history, largely spanning from Chalkstone to Charles Street. And That spans a number of different housing issues. The first thing that we can do, we've passed dozens of bills up at the Assembly as it relates to what I would call housing production. How do we make it easier to build? More has been done in the last 2 years than ever before on that. More money has been allocated to housing than ever before over the last couple of years, largely because of the federal funds that we have received. And I think that will lead to a lot of things. And it will certainly change here in Rhode Island the fact that we are last in the country when it comes to new housing production. So with that production, hopefully that lowers the cost. But I'm afraid to say I don't think it's going to lower rents here in District 1, and I sure as heck don't think that the price of housing is going to go down in District 1. And I think we have to address it on a number of fronts. We need more direct build that's supported by the government. We have Section 8 waiting lists that, through Providence Housing, that are unconscionable. We also have conditions that people are living in, managed by Providence Housing and other housing authorities, that are unconscionable. We need to directly invest in those properties. And the other thing that we're seeing, there's vacant lots that still dot our community. So hopefully if we can make it easier to build on those lots, that increased supply will decrease things. But rent affordability is also a huge concern. We see it over in Wanskuck. People come in, they offer $100,000 over ask for a property, and the rent the next day is $3,500 a month. That's ridiculous. So rent control to some extent, I don't know how you do that when you're talking about a change in ownership, but absolutely we should be looking at everything. And it's a continuum of issues here in Senate District 1. And more money won't necessarily be the problem, more laws won't be the problem. It's really going to have to be a portfolio of things.
Thank you so much.
I agree with you to some extent. One of the biggest issues in our district, however, is that most of the properties aren't owned by the people living in the district. It's owned by Strive, it's owned by 02904, it's owned by all these different companies that come into Providence who cater to college students who don't live here. They come in, they jack up the rent, and I've had this discussion with my landlord actually, and he says the same thing. Well, the people across the street, they just raised it to $3,600. That is double. I went from a double, paying a double, and you're telling me another double? No, I think not. I think we need to reassess who we're selling these properties to and reinvest in Rhode Island, because like I said in the very beginning, we have a very bad habit of funding people who don't live in the state, who don't know the plight of the people, who come in for those tax breaks, get the tax break, and when the tax break runs out, they move out of the state. I mean, we've already invested $30 million into the Superman building. What did we get from that? Lights. We got light. I can see it from my kitchen. That's all we got for $30 million. So instead of reinvesting in the community, they're investing in some hope that these millionaires, billionaires, whomever, are going to save the city somehow, but they're just looking just as much as everyone else to make a living. And it's not helping us, it's destroying our communities. So I would definitely look into the whole corporate rebranding of the city and get rid of them.
Thank you. Maria?
Well, I will start with the rent control. I just see New York do it, or the big city do it. Why not Rhode Island? Rhode Island is like this, very small. So I will start with rent control. Doesn't matter you are local or you are foreign. So it's a law and the legislation says rent control. You buy the property, you sell the property, the rent control is still there. So we have to do it. I don't know to what extent, but we have to do rent control as soon as possible. So we work in that as a senator. Another thing that we do is, right away, so we have to work with local government in every single city. So the state don't control the city, so the state has to work with the mayor of every single city and the city council of every single city. So one of the things that I've been working, when I was working in the campaign for the Smiley was, I think so we're supposed to increase and be, is it safe, create in law or the garage, we can make it into apartment, the people that want it and can play safe. I do believe also we can allow people working in the basement, there are legal basement, and then they can apply and also go to the city, the inspector, everything can be safe, but a lot of basements are legal, and because the city mandate or legislation, whatever they have in the city, they don't allow any basement to be occupied. And I do believe it's a lot of basements that are like this, have two or three different doors, we can make apartment there too. Because Providence doesn't get any bigger, all right? And one of the things that we suggest too will be to allow part of the city to be building higher building. So we don't have to keep trying to be New England and we really like a city of the history. We have to start going up when we're building any building in the city. So we keep doing these little houses, these small places. We have to build that more. And also we have to analyze. In the last few years, we have a lot of storage building. So how many people store stuff over there? We have to use that space to build housing and not more storage. I don't know for what. So we have to analyze, and the city country has to play their role too in every single community, especially in Providence, but we are not getting any bigger. So we have to go up, and we have to revise the policy of the affordable housing and also the space to live in the city.
Thank you. Representative?
Yes, so our first touch based on the rent control. So it's pretty good that it was Councilwoman Graves that asked this question, and I also have Councilwoman Peterson out here. So like those things actually is one of the things I know it's a statewide issue, but as a matter of fact, we'll probably just till it first was Senate District 1, like Strath, like where my colleagues were talking about the Strath property, like within both wards, right? So as I was canvassing, I felt like so Strath, the management of Strath gets here and start to increase people rent. So they increase the family rent. So I was speaking to the families. The family was actually packing to leave, right? And this was about 3 weeks ago. So they increased the rent, they increased it with $500. And so the landlord just told them like within the 2 weeks, so the next month rent you're gonna pay additional $500. Family didn't have additional $500 to pay, so now they have to leave. So now what Strath does is so they remodel that apartment quickly in less than a week or two, and they rent it to a college student for $900 per room. Per person. So now what happened is we have our family's going to be out on the street, right? But then these big time companies, all the stuff that comes in and start to make all this money. So those are things that we're going to have a legislation in place that will prevent these things from happening, to prevent for landlord to start to put laws in place for landlord and for tenant to save tenants. So if you want to increase your rent, there's going to be a time frame. And also the time frame in case, because some of them also, I also realized they do that the same time and they sell the property while the tenants in there while the tenants in there, then new property owner comes in, increase or evict the family, then the family on the street. So these are all of the things that I've seen. I noticed as a United States Senator, make sure that we're going to put legislation in place to prevent these things from happening. And we have vacant lands, vacant houses all in the city of Providence that we can take a look at, because currently the state is paying $900 per family in a hotel for our homeless situation we have right now.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I support rent control, rent stabilization. There were several bills that were proposed last legislative session that were not even heard. Some were capping it at a 10% increase plus the CPI, which at that point in time would have been 16%. 16%, that is a modest increase, and still it was not heard. Didn't go anywhere. I believe it should be more, maybe 5% in the CPI. 16% was too much. People have their rents being increased hundreds of dollars several times in 1 year, and eliminating it to 1 year. One increase per year, that bill didn't get passed. Also increasing the notice that people receive before their rent is increased, as well as reining in corporations like Strive and holding them accountable, and supporting ADUs, and stop investing in developers and giving them all these tax breaks. We need to invest in people, invest in low income and public housing.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all of the candidates here today for coming and asking questions. I wish you all the best of luck, and I wish everybody here have a safe return home. Thank you so much.
Folks, thank you for watching. Listen, take a moment if you can, facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the Mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. We'll have this, it's already going to be up on our Facebook page in moments, and we're going to be shifting around a YouTube version as well. Listen, we're going to be here for every bit of this campaign as well as GD1. So if you can hear me, stay tuned, buddies. Thank you. Everyone have a great night.